We have a lot of treats for you today, and so I'm Erin Martin, and of course,
I'm Jimmy Emmons.
And we'll be telling you a little bit about our stories and how we kind of came together and how we connect human health and soil health and why this is the most revolutionary thing that's going on today and why it's the most important thing to me and why that is. So Jimmy, tell them just a little, I know everybody knows you, but tell them a little bit about your path into farming, regenerative farming, and then how maybe you made this connection to me.
So my great-granddad actually brought my granddad to our family farm in Dewey County in 1926. They had 14 kids, and there's too many kids for the family farm, and so they loaded up 3 brothers and 2 daughters and headed out. And the first place they came, they found our homestead was for rent in 1926, and they rented that. And then Uncle Marvin and Bascom went on to California and Washington, and the girls never found any place, so they came back to Oklahoma City. So we started there, and the big event happened in 1934, and that was the Hammond flood. Washita River flooded, where there was a dozen lives lost during the flooding. That night at the family farm, I know Scotty's been there and several others, the creek that runs through our farm, my granddad had started that with a walking plow in 1927 and 8 to kind of divert the water straight through the field. It washed that creek out that night, and that really made a lasting impression on my granddad. So they instilled in me, conservation, protect the soil at all costs. And so that's kind of some of the background I got, and that's the reason I'm so passionate about soil and how we take care of it.
Awesome, Jimmy. And so a lot of people in this room obviously are farmers and have gotten to understanding soil health through caring about the land and being stewards of the land. And I came to this in a much, much different way. My family was not in farming. My grandfathers were in the oil business. My parents went the total different way and went into mental health. And when I was 15 years old, I wanted to make my own money, and I found a job that I could make $7.25 an hour when I was 15 years old, and that was really exciting, and it was at a 55-plus retirement community. And I was a dishwasher and server in the retirement community, and I fell deeply in love with older people. I thought they were hilarious because they would say anything that was on their mind. They didn't care what anyone thought. And to me, they were more authentic because they were more themselves. And I loved that. And as a 15-year-old, I did associate that at the time with authenticity being a part of happiness. And why younger people weren't adopting this sooner puzzled me. And we were missing so much wisdom that was there. And I didn't understand why younger people didn't love being around older people, but I did, and that's all that I knew. So I knew 135 residents. I knew if they drank buttermilk or if they had iced tea with 4 lemons, and I loved working there. I actually ended up working there for 4 more years until I was 19 years old. I was promoted through the company, and I served as emergency response at the front desk from 4 p.m. till midnight. So at that time, I started understanding the problems in aging and seeing when people would fall and when IMSA would come in and different emergencies. So that's where I started seeing those systems. And then from there, I got an undergrad in business management. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that I always loved working at this retirement community. And if I loved doing that, then most people I knew hated their jobs, so I thought if I could find something I loved, I should probably go with that. And so I was looking for a master's program at the time, and I grew up in Tulsa, but I moved out to LA to experience something new, and I was looking for a master's program, and I couldn't really find something specific. So I called my father, and I said, hey, Dad, I don't really know what I want to do, and I'm not sure. And he said, well, Erin, why don't you do gerontology?
Why not?
Why not? I said, Dad, that's not a degree. I don't know what you're talking about. And of course, I went on Google.com and I searched gerontology, and the #1 school of gerontology in the entire world was 10 miles away from my apartment at the time in LA at the University of Southern California. It was founded in the late 70s by the founder of AARP. So gerontology is a very new degree because of the baby boomers that we knew were coming and aging. So we have 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day in the United States. So gerontologists do a lot of different things. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. A lot of gerontology programs are within a social work school, but this is the only freestanding school of gerontology in the world. And we are specialized in the physiological changes of aging, the psychological changes of aging, and the social and cultural impacts of aging. I'm trained by attorneys on how to navigate Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and understanding all of the systems of aging. So I have a business management degree. I follow the money. I watch the systems. And I was starting to see the systems of healthcare, of long-term care. I worked in Section 8 housing for seniors. I saw what was available to them and what wasn't available to them, what food they had available, what the insurance paid for and what the insurance did not pay for. And I saw a lot of unnecessary suffering. So we'll get into more about what the problems are, but there's a lot of parallels to the problems with the soil. So what are the problems with the soil, Jimmy?
Well, we've been talking about all day today how we've degraded our soils with chemicals and tillage and synthetic fertilizer over the last 150 years, and how the nutrients and the minerals have been depleted because of lack of biology that can break that down. And so I know that y'all are kind of wondering, like, why would Jimmy connect with Erin? Well, you know, I may be a baby boomer and I may be turning 65 in a few more years, but that's not really the reason that we came together. Soil and human health is what brought us together. And as I've been saying for several years, you know, we are what we eat, and we got to take care of our soil, and we got to protect it, and we got to regenerate it and rebuild it. And then I met Erin, and it really, really opened my eyes to the complete cycle that I've been talking about. Because what she does up in Tulsa directly ties human health to really good, healthy soils. And so to really understand that, and that's the reason I've had all the speakers over the last couple of days here talking about how that nutrient density, how that healthy food, or it be in Mississippi or in Tulsa or Oklahoma City or Leedy, Oklahoma, is so important. And so as we started to talking together and trying to understand how we could do this and really send out a really significant message, it's really been kind of earth-shattering of what we've found out about one another and about how we can regenerate this soil to really regenerate our food that will in turn regenerate our bodies. And maybe we can live a happy, older life without 15 or 30 prescription drugs and going to the doctor every day to try to get another drug. It's more about the food that we eat.
And that's eventually what I found out. So I started connecting in my studies. There's a couple myths. So there's lots of myths about misunderstandings about farming and soil health and things like that. And the same thing is for human health. So like I said, there's 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day. If you're 65 in the United States, you're on an average of 15 or more prescription drugs per year. I was seeing clients on 15 to 32 prescription drugs per year. But there's a couple myths about aging that I was learning in my program about physiology of aging. And there were two major myths that I came to understand through science and understanding the natural processes of aging. Well, what's become normal aging is not actual real processes of aging, especially in more dense urban areas, especially in the United States. One of the myths is that disease is a natural part of aging. People think that you get old and you get a disease and you die. And that is not true. That's a complete myth. Number two is that pain is a natural part of aging. Not true. Pain is not a natural part of aging. But I didn't understand that. Well, all the older people I knew was, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my hands hurt from arthritis. So what is going on here? So that's when I went to Italy and I started studying something called the blue zones. Does anyone know what a blue zone is? Okay, so a few of you. So for those that don't know what a blue zone is, there are about 8 blue zones in the world, and this is where people age the longest in the entire world. We have one in Loma Linda, California, and then the others are all over the world outside of the United States.
Probably not Leedy, Oklahoma.
No, unfortunately, Oklahoma is not a blue zone. We'd love to create that, so we're working on it. We're going to tell you how we're actually implementing these things. But so people are dying of something in these blue zones, and it's called old age, and on 0 prescription drugs. So what do these blue zones have in common? They have a few things in common, and one of those things is the local food, right? If it's local, it's going to be more nutrient dense. When you ship food, no matter how the quality of it, when it was grown, that's one piece of it. But another piece is if it's local, so it maintains its nutrients if you're going to eat it quicker, and it's not artificially ripened or prematurely picked. So for example, I found out that spinach can lose 95% of its nutrients in 24 hours, and on average...
Now wait a minute. You said it lose how much?
95% of its nutrients within 24 hours.
In 24 hours from the time you pick it.
Right.
Well, if it's in California and it's shipped to here, and in the grocery store time I get home, it's past that 24 hours.
Yeah, it's probably pretty depleted.
Yeah.
And on average, most crops are losing up to 30% of their nutrients within 72 hours. So it does vary between crops. So you want to have a lot of nutrients in it, but you also want to make sure that it's local, which also stimulates local economy. Some of the other things that these blue zones have in common are they exercise consistently, they eat a predominantly plant-based diet, so it doesn't mean they don't eat meat, they do, they just eat it more rarely, like once a week or once a month. And then they also have this beyond everything. There's a blue zone in Pennsylvania that people have talked about. It's not one published in the Blue Zone book, but they smoke and drink all the time, but they have this long life. And so what the overriding component that I see, even though I know and believe food is medicine and a ripple effect, is this close connection with community and feeling a part of something larger. So purpose, mission. We have people, they retire and then they lose all their identity and they don't feel connected. And older people are not revered in this society, where in Italy and these other blue zones, older adults are much more revered, and death is not something that we hide and don't look at. It's something that they embrace in many different ways. So that was a huge turning point for me, Jimmy. It
was, and it's a real eye-opener how we can do that. But then how does that apply here in Oklahoma? And that's something that we talked about earlier today, and Dan talked about nutrient density and variations and whatnot. But how many of us still grow a big garden and can and live off the garden like we used to, like our grandparents? A few, right, but not very many. And I've been one of them guilty ones as well until we started the big chaos garden concept, and it's really been very good for us. But that's one of the lacking things, is this local grown food that's grown in healthy soils, which we have very little of in Oklahoma and across the globe. And so that's how we got to get started. We got to fix our soil to be able to fix our bodies. And as we put this thing together in Tulsa, one of the big challenges that we run across is having enough local, fresh-grown fruits and vegetables so that we can do something with that to start healing our bodies. And that's what's really excited me about meeting Erin, is how we work together. I'm the soils guy, but she's the gerontologist and the health person that really can tie this all together. So it's made a really, really good team concept. Oh, we talked about that earlier today too, didn't we? Yeah. So that's how important all the partnerships that we have in conservation is. And the conservation districts can play a very, very big role in this, and how we start getting community gardens, how we start helping producers get hoop houses, high tunnels where they can grow fresh vegetables and fruits year round, not just seasonal. And so that we can have that fresh local vegetables and fruits together, because who wants to be on 15 to 30 prescription drugs all the time?
Not me. I don't know about you, but not me.
So, Erin, tell us a little bit about this new thing in Tulsa that you just got started over the past few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I obviously, through my understanding of the blue zone and what was true about aging, what was actually happening with aging, and these older adults that I loved and respected, was obviously that food is medicine. I watched clients come off of all of their medications and get better by making lifestyle changes. And I was doing that on a kind of individual basis while I was doing geriatric care management and helping families navigate the long-term care space, because it's an absolute disaster trying to navigate that. I found during the pandemic, people were more aware, right? A lot of breakdowns in systems were revealed to us, one being food supply chain shortages. And there was a lot of people in Tulsa at the time that were concerned about our food sovereignty and being able to rely on our local food systems. And so there was a subcommittee of the Tulsa Food Security Council focused on a food prescription program. And Julian talked a little bit about that earlier, so I was so excited to hear about that. And this is where a physician prescribes fruits and vegetables to someone with a chronic condition. There are 200 food prescription programs in the United States, a lot of them focused on diabetes, since that's something we more easily accept as something that can be reversed completely. This doctor particularly was treating patients in a food desert, in a place where people did not have access to a grocery store for 14 years. And the difference between those in North Tulsa versus South Tulsa, so North Tulsa being the food desert, South Tulsa not, the difference in longevity from this zip code to this zip code was 11 years, just by living in a food desert. So we have 7 zip codes in Oklahoma we have diabetes is the 7th leading cause of death in Oklahoma. We have 5 zip codes where the most people are dying from diabetes, and 3 of those zip codes out of 5 are in North Tulsa. And he was seeing that his patients were compliant with their medications. They were coming to their doctor's visits. They were doing everything they were supposed to do in the clinic setting. And they still had uncontrolled diabetes, which there is an A1C level, which is your hemoglobin level. And if you have an A1C over 8, that means you have uncontrolled diabetes, which means that you're more susceptible to have a stroke, kidney failure, or amputation. And lots of these people already have had amputation. And there was a study called the Fresh Food Pharmacy, all Fs.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that great? I know Jimmy wants me to change the name.
Yeah, I do.
This one's called Fresh RX, so fresh prescription. And some are called Food RX, and people call it all different things. But pharmacy with an F, absolutely. And the doctor had found this program in the Fresh Food Pharmacy, and they had already proved that they could reduce someone's A1C level by 1 to 2% in 12 months just by prescribing fruits and vegetables. This would account for $16,000 to $24,000 in healthcare cost savings per person per year, and it only costs us about $3,500 to do it for the year. And that it's not only just paying for that 1 year, it's that we're teaching them to fish. So this is something they can maintain. We're not just handing them fish. We're teaching them how to fish so that beyond this program, they are able to make better choices and to either manage or even reverse their diabetes. So I'm going to get into a little bit more detail about the program. And what's great is that Jimmy has created this whole other echelon, and also Dan for our program, is to also look at our producers' soil health and also the nutrient density of that food, so we can really hone in on competitiveness within our own producers. And I had this understanding of regenerative farming because I went through the soil advocacy program with Kiss the Ground, where I started connecting, and that's how I got to this, was connecting soil health with human health, with the translation of the minerals and all the nutrients in the soil to the food. And I said, hey, the doctors wanted to supply it from like Amazon or the food bank.
That makes no sense at all, especially when we got producers out here and all over the country that's looking to grow something to make some money. And why not make some money and make some health in that as well for
Right.
everybody else? So that's where I came in and started meeting with producers, trying to help them get some hoop houses up, and to understand not to be planting in pots inside. You need to be planting in the soil, an active soil, under the hoop house, so that we can have regeneratively grown. And then that's when Dr. Rick Haney and his wife Liz and Lance Gunnerson of Regen Labs started coming up with how we are going to test more in the soil, and so that we can prove that it's regeneratively grown. And so now they actually have testing that's just coming out where we can certify, verify it's grown regeneratively. And we do that through a 0 to 6 inch soil test and a 6 to 12 inch soil test. So we're just now, Lance came down last week, took some samples of some growers there in the Tulsa and Bixby and Bristow area to send off so we could start learning how their soil is and what we got to do, what we got to grow in that to help that soil health get to the level that will increase the plant quality of the products that we're going to get out of that, so that the doctor can prescribe that to the patient directly. It is a brand new concept to me, but as Erin said, it's not a new concept nationwide. It's catching on. There's several around, but we're the first here in Oklahoma that I know of.
Yeah, and to source specifically, not only local, but I think for us, really the first to source regeneratively specifically. And so that's why we added this quality measure, like what is regenerative and are they really regenerative? And we do vet their soil practices, but having this extra layer. So what happened is the health outcomes, I believe, are more efficient. We'd have to compare to other programs, but we have seen so much change so quickly in our participants, and I'll share some of that data with you, and then we'll show a video as well about one of our champion participants. So we raised $185,000 in 6 months to feed 50 people for free in North Tulsa. We had 2 partnered clinics. We have a new partnered clinic as well, and there's no shortage of sick people, but we started with 50 people because we didn't know what the local food capacity would be like. And in 6 months, we've had 31 people out of 47 continued participants that have seen a reduction in their A1C. We've had 23% of them go from uncontrolled to controlled diabetes, but that does not account for people that went from a 12 to a 10. So if you don't drop below an 8, you're not considered controlled. So we did have 23% go from uncontrolled to below an 8, but we have had many large successes where specifically an individual, Derek, he went from 13.6 to a 6.5 in 6 months, lost 30 pounds, and cut his medications in half. We're also tracking mental health. So I would say at least 60 to 70% of our participants are diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and we're tracking how that is improved through the food is an entry point. And as you improve your health, it is a self-building house. And if you have all the nutrients that you need and the vitamins and minerals, your body will do the processes. Just like the soil, when it has what it needs, it produces incredible things. And then the same thing goes for us. So we have seen people have incredible results, be happier, be able to have more successful relationships because they're not in so much pain, because they're not having to take so much medications, because we're addressing the social determinants of health, which are all the things outside of a clinic setting. So if one of our participants, I asked one the other day, I said, hey, like what's stressing you out the most? Like, how can we help you in this program more? And she kind of looked at me weird and I said, okay, let me ask you this. What is stressing you out the most in your life? She said, it's my housing situation. Well, if someone's more stressed, they're not going to absorb the nutrients as well, and the likelihood of their health outcomes increasing is very low if they're stressed, because oxidative stress is a killer anyway. We all know this.
Well, as you get stressed, your sugar levels come up too. I mean, that's just the body's natural ability trying to help you as you stress out a little bit, and so that's very important. But I want to back up just a minute.
Okay.
You said Derek went from a 13.6
to a 6.5
in 6 months with only
fruits
difference in his diet of locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables.
And some education on how to cook it, right?
Yeah, you got to have education on how we cook it.
Yep.
but with half the medication.
Half the medication and 30 pounds down.
See, that's what I'm saying, is this is the data that we've been looking for. This is the medical clinic data that's coming out of this first round of Fresh RX. Now, we've got 300 to 400 more patients that qualify to get in, but the greatest need now is sourcing the food. And so we've got to build that. And we can do this all over the state, everywhere. And we do have a clip here of a patient that we want to show that News 6 out of Tulsa done a special on Erin and the patient.
Pastor Deborah Cooper, and Tulsa People is running a story on us that'll come out in April. But yeah, if we can go ahead and show that video, that would be great.
Erin says access to locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables is really improving her health.
She participates in the Fresh RX food program and tells News on 6's Sawyer Bussey she's already seeing an improvement in her diabetes numbers.
Well, you got a lot of colors there.
Oh yeah, that makes it pretty. That makes it pretty.
Welcome to Deborah Cooper's kitchen.
And put my peppers and onions in first. Like I said, they don't make you feel like you're getting a handout. It's like come and get some longevity. Yeah.
It hasn't always been this way.
I was best friends with Little Debbie and her snack cakes.
Deborah says unhealthy foods were also friendlier to her budget and at times much more accessible than fresh local produce. Over the years, Deborah's sweet tooth started impacting her health. She was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in June, and as a patient at Crossover Health Services was connected with the Fresh RX team.
Our body can heal itself if it gets what it needs.
Fresh RX is partnered with Oklahoma farmers, community partners, and patients at Crossover Health Services to bring fresh, locally grown produce to 52 participants with dangerously high A1C levels and type 2 diabetes.
Food is medicine, and it has this huge ripple effect.
Deborah is one of the Fresh RX participants. In less than 11 weeks, her A1C levels have gone from a 10.6 to a 7.1.
They gave us all of these recipes with the items we were picking up. So that's like you gave me not just a car, but you gave me the keys too. I have even passed up Debbie. I see where they set them out. I just hold my head up and say, girl, bye.
Deborah is a pastor of a growing ministry, and her physical health is starting to match her spiritual health. She says the same results are possible for others.
What I'm called to do, I want to be here to finish it, and I want to do it in excellence. And this program, it is life-changing.
Real outcomes, real food, real people.
Sawyer Bussey, Oklahoma's Own.
You should have your own cooking show.
News on 6.
I think you should.
So see there what that really does for people? Now, I've been talking about healthy soils create healthy plants, and if we have healthy plants, we don't need the chemicals because they don't attract the disease and pest if they're very healthy and their sugar levels are high. That's the reason that sometimes I put on some molasses over the top and some humics to help that Brix level, that sugar level in that plant stay healthy. And so it makes all the sense to me, if we're growing healthy plants, then as we eat them, we're going to be healthier. And I've been saying that, but I didn't really have the data or the connections to the medical world to do that. And then, ta-da, Erin came along and the doctors, and it's like, holy cow, this is, folks, is the greatest thing since sliced bread came along, I'm telling you. Because it's what we need, and we got to do more education. We've got to be more diligent about our soil, and yet we can make more money. Did y'all hear how much money Dan Kittredge was making on 2 acres growing fresh vegetables and fruits? A good living. And yet I'm farming 2,000 acres and I'm making a living, but not a good living. So what could I do with just a few acres of that in our local community? We've done that. Trey and I started the Chaos Garden, working with the regional food banks and donating that. That was a great start, but that's just a start to what we really can do, Erin.
And this is a whole new market. And what I loved so much is working with the producers and how inspired they are and how they've connected their work on their farms to these health outcomes, and how not only are we supporting them and expanding their capacity, but we're also securing a market for them to sell that produce at the rate that they choose, because the stuff that they're creating is changing lives and it's saving an insane amount of healthcare cost savings. So just in 6 months, with that estimate I told you about, the $16,000 to $24,000 per person, we have had an average reduction of 1.98% within the people that have had a reduction. That equates to $750,000 in healthcare cost savings within 31 people. That is revolutionary. They say that if we paid with Medicare and Medicaid, if we paid for fruits and vegetables, we would save $1 billion in healthcare costs, and we would also be supporting our producers. And to get the funders to understand that the food component, the local food component in our farmers is as important as the patient outcomes, to see that light bulb go off in my funders' brains was so incredible. And they are starting to get it, and a lot of people are starting to get it. And it's these wonderful people like Julian and Dan Kittredge and Jimmy and all of you in this room that really care about this. That we could not do this without you. And that's how I realized that I couldn't be a good gerontologist and an older adult advocate, a human advocate, without advocating for the soil. And I had to realize that farmers were the true longevity heroes.
Yeah, and the great thing about what Dan's technology is doing, that in the very near future, we'll be able to show the clients, the patients, and you the difference in healthy food and not healthy food by just scanning them with the new device. And that's going to be, it's revolutionary, and it's going to put us in so much better place to understand what we have and how that can benefit us financially and health-wise. And
Yeah.
It's huge. And so now you see the trend that we've been going through today and yesterday, trying to bring you along to understand how important healthy soils is to everyone. And I mean everyone. And you look at me, I'm not that healthy looking. I'm overweight, but I'm on the right road if I can just stay out of these meetings, because we just eat and eat and eat, but we enjoy it. But it is mind-blowing what we can do with how we do that, and with these healthy soils projects. And it doesn't have to be in a hoop house. We can grow vegetables here in Oklahoma several months out of the year without being inside. And we've done that with the garden project. But if we're going to do these clinical trials and have these patients, we have to have year-round fresh fruits and vegetables. And we're going to have to do that either in a high tunnel or a wall of peony.
Wall of peonies.
Yeah, we want to get NRCS interested in some wall of peonies where we use thermal energy to keep that air temperature in the room of that building at a constant 58 to 60, 70 degrees, where we can really grow so efficiently.
Absolutely.
So that's just some of the things that we like to work on in the future. And we're so excited, and we've got Secretary Pollard's assistant here today with us, of the new pandemic center coming to Oklahoma. We're very, very excited about that and what we can do with One Health, so to speak. And the possibilities of that is just mind-blowing, what we can do here. And we're very, very happy to be a small part of that process. But we think we have a message that we can really help producers out there. And that's our mission. We want to help everybody if we can.
That's right. We are a whole person, and just like we don't want to treat the soil symptomatically, we don't want to treat ourselves symptomatically either. And what's beautiful about food is that it heals, it gathers, and there are no side effects. So I'm just so grateful, Jimmy, for inviting me, and Sarah, and all of you that I've been able to talk to, and would love to connect with you more. I am on social media, expert on aging, My business is called Conscious Aging Solutions, and Fresh RX Oklahoma is also where you can find out about that program. The time is ticking.
The time is ticking, and we got to get on this, folks. We put it off too long, and I know we can do it. I've seen it. She's proven it. The doctor's proven it. And the doctor that, I want to back up that one point that a while ago, the doctor wanted to buy the vegetables from Amazon. Now, I'm not bashing Amazon, but we know that the numbers tell us that's not going to be fresh, high-dense, nutrient food.
And wouldn't have created those health outcomes so quickly.
Once we got the vegetables from local regenerative farmers, the doctor said, oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's now full on board. He said at first, like, show me studies on that. And I said, well, we're kind of doing that right now. And so now he's full on board. He's a very religious guy, so he's found religious texts. It's all very scripture to him, and it is, and found books where, you know, regeneration has been around for a long time in Native communities. They understood all of these things. So it's just bringing this ancient knowledge and helping us remember what that is about. So it's been really cool to see the doctor even understand it more. And so the doctors are what make it so powerful, because we've been trained for good reason in a lot of ways to trust our doctors. And so when they prescribe the program, people are very encouraged to do it. And so I always hand them their food, and I said, make sure to take all your prescriptions.
So let's take a few minutes. We got to wrap up here in about 10, 15 minutes. Let's take a few questions, and maybe we can help you.
Yeah. Oh, you mentioned start with about lowering people's pain. Did you find anything that helped these people's pain, body aches and things?
Yeah, so what happens is, and this is a very like generalized way of talking about health, but when you are demineralized and you can't hydrate and you have inflammation, which is pain, as people are getting access to all of these nutrients, their body's able to reduce an inflammation. So the inflammation goes down, which relates directly to their pain in different ways.
And a lot of that inflammation settles in our knees, our knuckles, our elbows, shoulders. And so as that depletion happens, then that allows that process to go to them weak spots, them joints.
Yeah,
and
it'll heal itself if it gets what it needs. So it addresses anything. And you may be more susceptible to certain parts of pain, depending on what you're doing, but your DNA, but it has to be triggered. And so when your body is not getting what it needs, it's going to become inflamed. And then a lot of times, a body's response to inflammation is mucus, and then the continuation of mucus is infection, and then can create dis-ease in the body. So as you give it what it needs, your body can go and heal itself. So that's how that works.
Ed?
Yeah, Jimmy, I was going to ask you and Erin both if you are familiar with the Oklahoma Farmers Market Conference, which this year has changed its name to the Oklahoma Local Ag Summit, and it's sponsored by the One E Project, or ONE, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yeah, ONE. Yeah, we use some of their recipes. I'm actually gonna go tomorrow, so I'm glad. Yeah, Local Ag Summit. Yeah, we have I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of our Tulsa Urban Ag Coalition members are going to be there. What we ended up doing was we saw, there's Fresh RX, there's other food missions like Food on the Move and different things in Tulsa, and we thought we're all in these lanes on the highway and we all need to coordinate. So what we did is we created the Tulsa Urban Ag Coalition with people from every single component of the food system. So someone who's an urban gardener, someone who works in restaurants, someone who works at our food hub and mobile grocery store, myself, someone who works with Catholic Charities in their community garden. And we had a public meeting. Trey Lamb was there, Jimmy was there, the NRCS, the USDA. We had Tulsa Housing there, Food Bank, we had everybody, we had 43 people. Now we have 80 members of Tulsa Urban Ag Coalition. We created 6 subcommittees to destroy the barriers to local food and to address those things. So we're excited. A lot of the members should be at Local Ag Summit. I'll be there in the morning, so hope to see you.
The other question I have is, a little while ago, Jimmy referred to a gardening project. What's the gardening project?
So I want to say this is our 6th conference here. Probably 6 years ago, Trey and I come up with this concept. If we're growing these cover crops, what would happen if we would start to throw in some vegetables, edible foods in the cover crops. And then we started working with Green Cover Seed out in Bladen, Nebraska. They had a small mix at that time they called Chaos Mix of a garden where it's all grown together with cover crops and edible. And so we started that process with them, and we signed an MOU. Sarah and all of us went to the regional food bank here, signed an agreement with them. We had lots of gardens go in across Oklahoma. Things were going really, really well. We were, there was some learning curves from picking. It's in a chaos or milpa now they call it process. It's a hunt and pick. It's not road, so to speak. And then there was, of course, like Erin faces in the Fresh RX program, people aren't used to fresh vegetables. And so there's education in cooking as well that we had to go through. And then sadly, the food bank had to cut their budget, and one of the items that they had to cut was our program out, which we thought there was a lot of programs that had more value in them, they thought, than this one, but we kind of argued, but that's been a little more challenge. Now, there's still vegetables grown, and we still donate to regional local pantries, but that's a really, really good project, Ed, that we can do, and the districts can really do some great work in that, and we need to revitalize that, maybe in a different way somehow or another, that we don't have to involve the regional food bank. But that was a few acres that I could donate the fresh vegetables to needy people and homeless people. So that was a good project.
And if producers also just you could have 1 acre or something where you produce some food for us and we can buy that food, that's something that you could do to engage with us. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in the food and health business, there's been a long track record of the status quo power players lobbying against things that could potentially take money out of their pocket. It happened with sugar and the creation of the dietary guidelines. It happens with agricultural chemicals. So when you're trying to get Medicare and Medicaid to fund this food as a prescription idea, do you expect to see pushback from the regulators or for anything like that? Have you seen it so far?
There will always be some pushback when you're trying to change the traditional system. The thing about this is now we are starting to have the data from the medical world that says maybe we've done this wrong. And here is the data, and then we can start combating that a little bit, Meg. But there's always going to be some pushback, and that's part of the problem with big ag and big industry. This whole concept of this regenerative ag, they're fearful. What I asked my dealer was, his granddad started a John Deere dealership way back when the first tractors come out, and I said, it's just a change in equipment. It's no different than the moldboard plow. How many moldboard plows do you sell today? And he said, we sell none. And I said, so you're still in the equipment business. It's just different equipment. It's high residue planters, seeders, sprayers, what different things that you need. So it's sometimes a mental block of them big companies thinking that you're threatening their industry when really all their industry has to do is just adjust to the time and refocus a little bit. But it is going to be a challenge, I'm sure, down the road.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we try to work together as much as possible, and that's what we intend to do. But of course, I expect that. People have warned me about that. But what's cool is that there actually has been about 7 meetings at the federal level in Washington, D.C., and they've started a food as medicine pilot program. So we do expect that there would be federal money that should be coming as a result and as they prove that data. And there's also some other waiver programs in a couple states that pay for food, not specifically as a food prescription, but for food insecurity, because they do understand that it will prevent catastrophic health events. So we're hoping that the needle's turning. So great question. Yes, sir.
I want to do a quick follow-up, Clay, then I'm going to get you. That's the reason we're so excited about the Pandemic Center, because that's going to be more research and development of this exact same program but that just builds the data, that builds the true need out there of changing the system. So that's the reason we're really excited about the new pandemic center. Clay?
Jimmy, if you look at this food as a holistic approach, are you using meat, pork, poultry, locally grown, as you look at this holistically?
Yes, I mean, that's, you know, we have to have the diversity. And that's what Erin was talking about earlier. In these blue zones, they still consume all sorts of meats. They just don't maybe consume it every day, 2 or 3 times a day, but they still consume meat and everything. We have to have the diversity in the diet to have healthy bodies and healthy plants. And it's the same way with cattle. That's the reason that we keep recommending, even in a feedlot scenario, maybe it's not just corn silage that they need or corn, they need more multiple species blend in that silage and that hay. And we've seen that on our farm. We put up some hay the last couple of years that tested that we needed no protein to feed our cows other than that hay, but it's a multi-species. And so it gets back to the same principle of our bodies and the animals as well. I mean, we have to have the diversity, and that's, I keep telling everybody, Clay, over and over, and Michael had some good slides of microbiology up there feeding below the ground. They're like us. They got to have the diversity in the roots and the plants to be healthy themselves. And we're all alike. We all have to have water. We all have to have air. We all have to have food to eat and diversity of that food. And everything that goes in the front comes out the back as a nutrient. And we're all the same. We get in this feeling that we as humans are superior when actually we're all alike. Whether it's a microscopic organism or an elephant, we all function the same way. And so that's going to be a part of the diet. And that's the reason Dan was talking about measuring beef with the new instrument. We're working on that this year. Then we're going to move to chicken, pork, other things. We've done been on the vegetable side, so that's coming.
You know, Jimmy, especially during the pandemic, beef is one of the main products that we've seen driven by quality. I mean, we didn't see a demand for quality vegetables really, or fruits, or cereals, or bread, or anything as much as we saw demand for higher quality beef, especially locally processed beef. But there's really been a push. People are beginning to understand, you know, visually the differences, and also the difference in what locally grown beef means.
Yeah, I mean, Trey, that's the one good thing. I mean, one of the few good things that's come out of the COVID and the pandemic is people are more aware of their health and their food, and you know, the transportation debacle that we're still in, the food supply chain is broken because we all operate on just in time in everything, in parts, in food, and everything. And when you have that glitch for a few days, and we had, you know, a year's worth, now it's created this huge debacle in the supply chain, and that's where that awareness have came. And you're exactly right. Secretary Arthur talked about it yesterday, the demand for processing plants. The processor that I've been with, well, for 40 years almost, we'll be married this September. We've been with that local company, and when we butchered earlier in the season, they said a year and a half. And it's like, no, I got to have it before then. And they worked us in. But that's how far behind the local processing has been overwhelmed. But then that's also the opportunity for us as producers, because we can sell that product ourselves and cut the middleman out and sell a very nutritious, healthy, local grown commodity product and be more profitable. And so that's what we've got to do. Yes, Gary?
I have a question. So I used to be part of the CSA, and it was run by a couple and, you know, their kids, and they were doing lettuce and vegetables and tomatoes and eggs and pigs, pasture-raised pork. They ended up shutting down, selling everything off because they couldn't keep help, and
So,
somebody to come help them when they needed a break or
sure.
whatever. Is there any, I mean, is there any kind of effort? And they were down in Slaughterville, so.
Sure, sure. So Jerry, I'm gonna let Erin answer that because in her funding this last time she asked, and go ahead and talk about the labor force.
Yeah, that was when we had that Tulsa Urban Ag Coalition meeting. That was we highlighted what the barriers were and what the priorities were, and one of the top ones was labor. And so we listened to our producers about that, and so we put into funding for 5 part-time farm hands to be able to be trained. So we have a farmer market course that are producing new beginning farmers in Tulsa. So we're actually sponsoring individuals to go through that program so they could become a farmer, but they would at least be trained on how to harvest and seed and do different types of things. And we're gonna actually pay for that labor to go onto their farm so that they can expand, because even if we just invest in 1 year of them expanding and having that extra help, they'll be able to expand much further without as much help. But that's something that the Tulsa Urban Ag Coalition is looking at, is how do we train people, how do we organize volunteers, but how do we also employ hard to employ individuals that would benefit from putting their hands in the soil. So absolutely a super important component, and I'm glad you brought that up. What we've also seen with aggregating all of these producers, these vetted producers, is that we're kind of creating our own CSA, so you wouldn't actually be limited to just one producer and what they have. So we've actually started allowing the public to come in at our distributions after we've given it to all the participants, and they can buy. And then now we're starting to connect those producers and our aggregated food to local restaurants as well. And it's a slow going thing, but we're getting the wheels greased. So yes, all those things.
And another thing that we're in the middle of now is hiring an urban ag specialist in the Tulsa area. That's a partnership with OCC and NRCS that are out right now for the hire. Also, we had a meeting, and I think Jamie's in here, Jamie Woods, the acting state conservationist. Yesterday, Erin and I met with him briefly and talked about how we can have some more local meetings and have the local NRCS and the districts involved in a learning process of starting a hoop house or gardening and markets, and what Erin's looking for, so that we build that continuity and that local support group as well to help these producers, to help us help others. And so as we build that, and that's what the Oklahoma Partnership is really good at, is when there's a need, we can step up and partner together, and we can all be better. And so that went very well, and we'll be setting some of that up here in the near future to help in the Tulsa area. But then we can do that here, we can do it down there, because there's plenty of health issues out there, and there's plenty of opportunity for us as producers to make good money helping other people, and it's a never-ending circle if we work together.
Yes, Phil. Of course.
My question is, we just recently heard from a presenter from Mississippi on their process and where they are in this journey. What's the future look like for collaborating and not inventing the wheel in different states? What would that look like for you all? And the second question is what does this process look like when it's full up and running in your eyes?
So Erin just talked after his presentation with him here, and I'm sure something's going to come out of that in the future, how we can work together and share ideas. That's the reason we had Mr. Miller come here today, was to get a different perspective from another state and bring more awareness before we talked about, oh, this is not the first. They were doing this before we were in other places, but how we're going to learn from one another to get to that level. And the second question was, and I'm going to let Erin handle that.
Yeah, how does that look? So, when I started this, I knew that raising money from foundations is not sustainable, and that's how all the other produce prescriptions work. And my mind completely, at the beginning, I was already, where does this go and how do we get a consistent funding stream? And so there was a policy report from the Harvard Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation, Harvard University Rockefeller Foundation, where they highlighted policy recommendations on how to get a funding stream or waiver programs to pay for food as medicine. I've been studying that and watching the federal conversation and really looking forward to collaborating with other states so that we can, it may be tweaked in different states of how things get passed, but coming up with strategy on how that process goes from the actual billing code of that clinic and how the producers get paid and how all of that system works with, we have a hub where all the producers bring that food, so building that infrastructure to create that distribution. So I'm still working all that out and really excited to talk to Julian about that and continue to talk to other states that have these things going on. And people doing those food prescription programs, but getting them to be more specific on how they source and how they assess the nutrient density and what types of foods that they're providing for these different chronic conditions.
Well, Erin, as you noticed, our time has run out. We really do appreciate, we so much appreciate the districts and the commission and all our partners. Tell Secretary Pollard, we're glad to have you all here today. We're looking forward to that. We really appreciate the opportunity to have Erin and I on the program, and we've got a great speaker coming up after us with Ryan Spear that's going to talk about grazing animals and not owning the cattle or being in the cattle business himself. Something that a lot of people need to hear is how you do that. So we'll be back with that shortly.
Thank you all so much.